Hey ya, way ya, way ya, way ya, way ya, way ya, hey yucca, hey yucca, hey ya, hey ya, hey yucca, hey yucca, hey ya, hey ya, hey yucca, hey yucca, hey ya, hey ya. My name's Jonathan Horan. I teach the five rhythms. I don't really consider myself a teacher. I'm more of a guide in the way that I work with people. The five rhythms practice is something that Gabrielle Roth evolved over her lifetime. Before my mom died, she wrote her last book, Connections. The book was dedicated to me, to Jonathan, my son, the keeper of the flame. And in that, she's passing me the torch to carry and keep lit and keep the five rhythms alive in the world. And, basically I spent the most time with Gabrielle out of anyone in the world, and followed her around everywhere she went, all around the world, kind of apprenticing to her since starting at 7. Before she died, I had all of her maps in me and was teaching them, and that makes me unique. But I also run the business of the five rhythms. So instead of executive director or CEO, I'm the chief bear. I say chief bear because Gabrielle and I spent a lot of time with Native Americans and really felt true kinship and fellowship in the way that they have gone about for so many thousands of years. And this seemingly, to me, all of this five rhythms work and this cosmology and the way that we practice is a revival of a different way of learning and a different way of praying and a different way of being quite physical and visceral in our spiritual practice, not just reading a book or chanting, but really fully embodying it and living it, breathing it, sweating it. I was born close to Esalen, and I grew up there, and we lived there when my mom lived there when I was born. We were definitely part of the community. That would have been the epicenter for the early development of the five rhythms practice. And I was dancing, as soon as I could walk, I was dancing, just in a kind of informal way, and as my attention span would go. But at 7, I went to my first 7-day workshop, and after that, I was all in. I never really had any problems that this was my mother. I think I started too young for any of that to it just seemed natural. That's what people did. Even though I was the only little kid in the room, that never was an issue for me either. I was fascinated all the way with everything that my mom said and resonated with it. There was the mother-son part of us, which was a beautiful relationship. And then there was the teacher-student relationship, so changing hats a lot. And then there was just the friendship, like human being to human being. And that was a great part too, because we'd sort of transcend these roles and just be like, New Yorkers, jabbering about theater or something, talking about life. Around 10, Gabrielle had a conversation with me, for better or for worse, and said, this is your life and you're responsible for it. And I can't tell you what to do. So I know you're going to do what you're going to do anyway, but I want you to know that I'm always here and I can provide you with my own experience and any wisdom that comes with that. Beyond that, you're on your own. You could say that I was predestined to be a five rhythms teacher and to follow into my mother's footsteps, but you don't know that until that happens. I loved the five rhythms. I loved being with my mother. I loved being a student of the five rhythms. I loved the community. I was growing up with all these, young, 20, 30 somethings that, that were part of Gabrielle's development of all of this, and the writing of the books and the doing the research. And there was a lot of people that were really consistently showing up, her kind of core group, which eventually she would invite to New Jersey and study for years together in like a closed environment. And but I was a little bit young at that point, to really get into that. But I was watching it all happen. Then I kind of had a limbo period. I just was traveling and surfing and enjoying myself. Part of that was being a ski bum, and in that process, I hit a tree snowboarding, and I totally dislocated this knee. And I didn't have any ligaments left. There was nothing left. And my ankle was by my ear wrapped around this tree. And the surgeon said it was the worst knee he had ever seen. And in that incredible, vulnerable place, some months after the surgery to put me back together, and having kind of, continually gone through this trauma of them on that day of the accident, kind of continually telling me that there was a good possibility that they were going to have to amputate my leg. And it just hit me who I really was. It was like, and I was like, oh, and then it made so much sense. And then life made so much sense. But, in hindsight, I had to get to this place where I was so vulnerable. And the funny part, well, it's not so funny, but a deep part of that story is that, I'd never taught anything in the 5 Rhythms at all. And my friend in Utah, who was also a skier, and he loved the 5 Rhythms, and he was like, Johnny, you're Jonathan Horan, you should be teaching the 5 Rhythms. I'm like, I've never want to teach it, I'm a student, and he's like, but you're Jonathan Horan. You're like Gabrielle Roth's son. You should like teach something here. And I was like, but I'm not her. I'm not a teacher. And he just convinced me. Eventually, he broke me down, and I agreed. And it was the day of my accident was the day that I was supposed to teach that first ever class. And I kind of got the feeling afterwards that the creator was sort of like, yeah, you really are meant to do this, but not as you are right here like this. Bam.
The 5 Rhythms are a catalytic practice. They're there to really inspire change and growth and motion. You put your psyche in motion and it will heal itself.
I called up my mom, and this is like the magic right here. I'm about to share with you the magic of Gabrielle. So she always knew long before what was going to happen. Happened. And, hey Mom, how are you? Yeah, beautiful. It just hit me. I just had this epiphany of who I am. And she's like, oh yes, who are you? I was like, I'm your son, and I'm going to follow in your footsteps, and I want to teach. And she's like, oh, that's wonderful. You're going to New Zealand. I was like, what? You're going to New Zealand? Yeah, there's someone that's organizing a workshop. They want me to come, but I'm going to send you. And I was like, that's it? She's like, yeah, I'll talk to you later. What? This was supposed to be like a surprise and a big deal. And it was like she knew. She was not a big deal for her at all. It was like just a matter of me catching up. And that's what she did with people. The moment she met people, she knew the whole story. I ended up really dedicating my life to the 5 Rhythms, and that just kind of, probably every 10 years, I just kind of recommit, yeah, this is still really serving me, and I want to serve it. I work very hard in taking care and holding all the pieces that are this big worldwide tribe and practice, but life just happens to me as well, and like very recently. And it has to switch, and it's like now the rhythms are just holding me, and I have to let all of that go, and just kind of be in that healing mode. And they're always there for us, like, but we have to be willing to let go of being like Chief Bear and just be Jonathan, vulnerable and broken and challenged, and let the rhythms hold and heal, and kind of that beautiful perpetual journey again and again to stillness. Like that is like the beauty and the healing, is that continually finding our way through all the stuff to get to that place of serenity, of grace, of connectivity, and the energetic vibration and mystery of life, and the ability to kind of look and see and witness instead of being all triggered and in something. You know, by the time we make it in the dance to stillness, it's like, it just is. I don't really like to think about it in terms of inheriting the 5 rhythms, although that is exactly what happened in the law. But like, as I said before, I was named the keeper of the flame, which is the person in many traditions who carries the tradition on. And yeah, of course, in the midst of that, you're in the hot seat. In a native ceremony, like a sweat lodge, the hottest place to sit is called the hot seat. And so that you're going to suffer the most, but you're also going to have the biggest, out of anyone, opportunity to change, to shift, to heal, to transform whatever's going on, whatever you're working with. So you're put in this place of power, but it's also going to have great challenges. But the real blessing is that, like, in this lifetime, I can really make some huge spiritual jumps for sitting in that seat. And the curse is just, everyone is looking at you, and watching you and talking about you, and sometimes praying for you and sometimes not praying for you. And my intentions as the kind of leader of the 5 rhythms have always been to, like, give back what I got, which was an enormous amount of love. Blessing or burden as the leader, like, I have to, like, give back. And that gets me through quite a lot of the messy parts, sometimes you're in the crystal clear waters, and other times you're in the fucking swamp, you just keep swimming, keep going forward. It's best not to have any preferences. But the wave has taught me a lot about that as well, like you're gonna always be going through the rhythm of chaos, which is gonna bring up all the shit. And but if you've done it enough times, you know that right on the other side of all of that, you're going to be a better person and go into lyrical. And the light's just right there at the end of the tunnel. You just got to make it.
Let yourself spin.
I talk to her all the time. I feel her very strongly, especially when I'm teaching in the room and dancing with everyone, and sometimes, being right behind me and really, like, holding me. Urging me forward and to be strong and grounded, and she's always saying, be creative, be creative, be creative. And she's always saying, forget everything I taught you. Forget everything I taught you. You know. That's really, like, at least the last good while, that's the mantra that I hear most. It's like, you're ready, you're ready. Let it all go and let it happen. Trust. I started so young that now, I've danced the 5 rhythms longer than her. It's very clearly coming through me in all these different ways, like what she left with so many people practicing for so long, now people are ready to hear things that they were not ready to hear when she was alive, or change things that weren't ready to be changed while she was alive, which I feel a lot of sort of sadness about, because, she had to do the initial work, it's something like, women being able to vote. Those first ladies, man, they paid a heavy price, civil rights, same thing, like these guys don't have to get beaten and chewed up by dogs and anymore. They actually have a platform now to just talk. And in a similar way, I feel like the dance world has opened up. And like everyone's in this conversation. When Gabrielle started, there was no conversation. She was just this aberration. And there was no language for like learning through movement.
Prayer is not about words for me. Prayer is about surrender to the dance, to finding that place where I can completely dissolve and disappear in the dance. In flowing, let the dance in. Focus on your inhale. In staccato, let the dance out. Focus on your exhale. In chaos, let the dance go. Release. In lyrical, let go of letting go and fall into the repetition of patterns. And in stillness, let your dance be.
Every Five Rhythms teacher eventually comes home to who they are and their gifts as using this platform, their unique offering, that comes from their experience. And definitely that happened for me. It was growing long before Gabrielle passed. And that was it, and where we clearly saw that while she was still really mentoring me was that she would give these incredible talks and sometimes exercises that very etheric, very mysterious, and I always had this ability to kind of bring it into the street, to I'd interrupt her and I would say, well, what that means in real life is, or how what she's saying actually is showing up in your life. And then I would talk about that. And then people would be like, oh, okay.
This practice is a meditative journey into the place of emptiness within us I call the Silver Desert. In this vast landscape of stillness, the spirits of all the rhythms appear and disappear like mysterious mentors to show us the way into the depths of who we are.
Silver Desert is a reference to like that place for her in the dance where she goes into trance and everything becomes light, hence the Silver Desert. And there you are connected to all information. This Five Rhythms is only just beginning if people are willing to really show up and be dedicated and disciplined in it. Like there really is no end to the possibilities of the spiritual journey. I still get these transmissions from her and encouragement and certainly protection. I haven't lost the mystery.